Well, I'm really happy to see both of you guys here. I'm excited to talk about this. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, of course, so our audience knows who you are and what you do. But before I do that, I'm going to just give a little bit of context for what this discussion is about. So as you guys know, it is the future of creativity and accessibility. So, we're at a time now when brands and businesses are facing more noise than ever before from external competitors. It's really important to differentiate your brand with a unique identity and to deliver impact for your community, right? Those are key. So in an effort to gain a better understanding of why brands choose to portray themselves to the public the way that they do, we're going to be talking about authenticity, impact, and creativity. So again, thank you guys for being here. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do professionally. Joe, do you mind going first?
Sure thing, Beth. So hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Joe Ammon, founder and CEO of Clove. We make sneakers designed for healthcare, specifically sneakers like this, which this is actually a release that's coming on Monday. So you guys are getting a preview. It's our first new colorway. Most asked for thing. But we launched back in November of 2019, and the business was inspired by my wife's experience. She's a registered nurse, and really the goal was to make a product that's optimized for healthcare, and then more broadly, a brand that elevates what it means to be a healthcare professional, both the highs and the lows and the realities of that life. Obviously did not see the global pandemic coming when we launched, but we were in a position, having already thought, months prior, let's build a brand that elevates what it means to be a healthcare professional and shares those stories. And we kind of dove right in, feet first, to shining a light on everything that was going on. So excited to be here and learn from Samir and Beth.
Amazing, thank you. Samir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm very fond of Joe and your company. My girlfriend is a nurse, and you have made your shoe accessible to her. She would have been watching today, but she's currently wrapping up a 12-hour shift, of course. Listen, my name is Samir Lakhani. Thank you, Beth, for having me on. I'm the founder of Eco Soap Bank, a nonprofit organization that has been fighting infectious diseases now for over 6 years. At Eco Soap Bank, we do something very simple, but very powerful. We employ women in 10 developing countries to recycle leftover soap from hotels and factories, which we then redistribute to children and families in health clinics, in schools, and directly in villages so that we can save lives. I want to spend just a moment talking about why we do this work and why it's so important. Listen, in the developed world, we can take something as simple as a bar of soap for granted, but in some of the regions we work in, only 1% of households have access to a bar of soap, especially dangerous during the coronavirus pandemic. And so we are here today with one simple founding mission, and that is to make soap accessible to everyone, no matter who you are or where you are. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know that both of you guys have done some really amazing work during COVID specifically. Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys have been up to?
Yeah, I can really remember the first week in March when we're based here in Philadelphia, where we kind of realized, oh my gosh, this is much bigger than anyone's really making this out to be. And so immediately Clove's mindset went to, well, how do we show up for our community first here in Philly? We call it the city of eds and meds. There's incredible hospital systems here. And so we worked with a nurse that we had built a relationship at Thomas Jefferson University. And in that first week, it was the first outdoor COVID clinic set up in Philadelphia. We showed up one morning right before a shift change, so at 6:45 in the morning, and surprised them all with a fresh pair of cloves. And for us, it was kind of like, in our minds, the least thing that we could do in this moment. And what was amazing, we kind of poked a dam of emotion, right? They had fear, anxiety, standing shivering out in this parking lot, getting ready to meet a set of patients that could very well be COVID positive. And just the reaction was incredible. So then we set off to duplicate that across the city and then across the country. So at this point, we've donated over $70,000 worth of our shoes, which are easy clean and liquid repellent, so they can clean them between patient rooms and obviously before they come home to their family if they're able to. And then compression socks, because we make compression socks, and it's such an important thing when you're standing for 12 hours a shift to have ample support in your legs and also under your feet. So it's been, we kind of mobilized this massive donation effort and did it very organically. It's been, that moment actually at Jefferson Hospital for myself and Jordan, our chief brand officer, it was like the most emotional experience we've had to date with Clove, of just kind of seeing the look in their eyes, and how much they were thanking us for doing something that we thought was like the definitional thing we should be doing.
Yeah. That's so amazing. And I know when we first talked too, I was really touched by your guys' mission, because I mentioned earlier in one of our panels on diversity, I myself wear prosthetics. I'm a double amputee. And so footwear is something that I always have trouble finding. It seems like this very niche thing, right? That people don't really design for specific groups of people or professions. And so I think it's just such admirable work. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Samir, can you talk a little bit about what you guys have been doing during COVID? Because I know it's been a Herculean effort.
Well, thank you for saying so. So it may surprise people to know that approximately 5 million bars of soap are thrown away every single day by hotels and factories around the world. And so what Eco Soap Bank is all about is about rescuing that product and saving it from landfills and employing over 154 women around the world to recycle this product into brand new bars of soap. Since the pandemic really started about 4 months ago, we've snapped into action and we've mobilized over 100 metric tons of soap waste in 4 months alone. Now, listen, it's hard to conceptualize how much 100 metric tons is. Let me tell you, it would not fit in your living room. It's about the equivalent of 25 Asian elephants. That's what we've been able to mobilize, and we've been able to redistribute it in 13 countries to about 1.8 million people around the world. And if I may, Beth, this is a serious problem. We're talking about accessibility today. Access to public health is nearly non-existent in many of the countries we work in. For example, in Sierra Leone, it's a country of 8 million people. And to my knowledge, there is only one available ventilator serving that entire population. However, there is hope in soap, and together we can save lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, you guys are people that I look up to. I really believe in both of your missions. So again, it's an honor to share the stage with you both today. Like I said at the top, we're going to be talking about 3 different sort of brackets, right? Authenticity, impact, and creativity. So let's jump right into authenticity. How can brands or organizations drive authenticity when the public is so distrustful of what they see or they hear in this current climate? Joe, I'd like to start with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and this has been something that's been incredibly core to everything we've done at Clove. As I mentioned at the top of the session, the business was inspired by my wife, who is a nurse, and she was kind of the first person that I turned to and saw her experience of buying shoe after shoe and spending, honestly, hours looking for something that she couldn't find that was optimized for her profession. And so it started with her, but it was resulted in getting prototypes made after doing a ton of customer interviewing and surveying, taking those prototypes, doing a trial at Penn Medicine here in Philadelphia with a group of nurses, taking all of that feedback. And so I can remember this point in the summer before we launched of getting a lot of competing viewpoints of like, well, how should the brand talk about this stuff? Should they tell your story, Joe, and your wife's story? Should you talk about kind of the journey, or should you just show up and say like, we're a mature company that has made this product? And we fell towards telling the story, and it was the greatest decision we ever made, because it's something that's resonated, and we get outreach all the time thanking us for being so thoughtful. And I think your point's absolutely right, Beth. Like every component of the shoe, we went in and asked ourselves the question, what would be the best material, the best design for healthcare specifically? And that telling that story has been phenomenal. I think where brands go wrong here is inventing a story, or hiding the story, the true story behind what the business is. And I guess every business does. I always think of Adam Scott's character on Parks and Rec when he wanted to start the chemical recycling business, right? Like obviously he had no passion about that business, and yes, maybe it could have made some money, but I think having a deep passion about what you're doing and then sharing that story to us has been kind of the ultimate marketing tactic. And it's really not marketing, it's storytelling.
Yeah, that's amazing. Samir, what are your thoughts on that?
I would love to build on Joe's point. The best way, in my opinion, to drive authenticity is to clearly, at every possible chance, explain your motivations, why you are doing this work and why you started this work. And for me, my motivation was found in a hotel bathroom 5 years ago. I was traveling through Cambodia and I saw something I would never, ever forget. I saw a village woman bathing her newborn child, but she was scrubbing his skin with laundry detergent. And after that event, I returned to my hotel room. And as I stepped into the bathroom, I had realized that my housekeeper had thrown away a bar of soap that I had barely even touched. This is an experience that most of us have shared. And in that moment, my motivation was clear as day. We're going to recycle soap and we're going to save lives. However, I would like to also say that business, in my opinion, businesses and nonprofits like ours shouldn't have firm credos that are completely unchangeable. It should consistently be reevaluated and reinterpreted, particularly by the people inside the organizations. My motivations might differ completely from Tirang's motivation in Cambodia, a young woman we've hired from exiting the penal system, or Sophia, an elderly woman in Nepal that had no other economic safety net. And so I think that bringing in those voices can further drive authentic storytelling and can only enhance the brand at large.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that idea of diversity of opinion too, because you have to be nimble and agile, like we've talked a lot about during today. So if the needs of your community change, your priorities have to change. And that sort of leads me into the next question, which is what can you do to make sure that you're aligned and authentic to the community that you serve? Joe, let's start with you on that.
Yeah, and Beth, I think I hit the best example of that for us, which was, starting by showing up for our community here in Philadelphia, where we're based. But I think a thing that we've done recently, actually just launched it last month, is another version of that, which is, we kind of looked at the social media ambassador model and thought there's a little bit of hair on this, right? Where it kind of feels like people are shilling products that, maybe they don't believe in.
Right.
So, we went through the process of thinking, can we flip this on its head? And so we ended up launching what we call the Clove Collective, which is a group of nurses, doctors across the country, incredibly diverse group. And they all have what we call Clove community codes that every time one of their followers use it, we donate to an organization that matters to that collective. And so right now we're donating to the National Black Nurses Association. And to us, it felt like the perfect marriage in our space of yes, like it's nice to have people talking about the company and sharing their experience with it, but let's put purpose into that communication.
Yeah.
And we just launched it at the end of last month, and the reaction has already been overwhelming. And we're figuring out exactly, the funds are likely going to go to funding students' accessibility to attend National Black Nurses Association's annual conference, which is it's just such a wonderful thing to do. It's another version of us showing up for our community in maybe more of a financial way than an actual tangible product way.
Yeah.
And we're super proud of that work and all the ideation that went into it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, even just about influencer marketing, right? Because I think a lot of people know that influencer marketing or ambassadorship is super important, but then, how do you hire somebody that feels right for the brand in a way that's going to make sense with the people that follow them? And it's just that thorough line of, you have your solid narrative, you have your mission, you know who your community is, and you're supporting your community through this sort of like external viewership. So I love that.
Yeah, and Jordan on my team, it came from a fashion brand, and so she kind of had that view and really was inspired to flip it on its head. And so it was amazing to see, the relationship she built, and everyone that's in the collective is very much aligned with our view of the world. And frankly, to Samir's point, which I love, is they're expanding on it. They're helping inform us of what we're going to do in the future, which to me is kind of a wonderful feedback loop that we've been able to build.
Absolutely. And Samir, I mean, you use your own community really to produce your products, right? So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, I would love to. I've been working in nonprofits now, international nonprofits, for 10 years. And every opportunity I get to talk about nonprofits is a welcome one. There's something that many people probably don't know. I've always received the question, who owns your nonprofit? Samir, do you own EcoSoap Bank? And what I tell them is that it may be a conceptual leap, but nobody owns EcoSoap Bank. In fact, how it's structured, and it's really quite beautiful, is that the public owns EcoSoap Bank. You own EcoSoap Bank, Beth, and you own EcoSoap Bank, Joe. And what that means is that our shareholders, if you will, are the people that we're helping, and that we are not only led, but the people that execute our mission is the people we're helping, continuously trying to inform our impact on a recurring basis. And I would like to give you guys just a comedic visualization just for a hot second. Imagine I went to Liberia. It's a country we've worked in previously. And in Liberia, only 1.2% of households have a bar of soap at home. Okay. Now, if I were to end up in a Liberian village and speak to a mother about a sensitive topic, such as her child's diarrhea, or her child's cholera, or sanitation or cleanliness, I would be kicked out as soon as I arrived, right? There needs to be, and what we learned very early on is that hygiene education, and in fact, any sort of global work, must be done by the people who look like the people they're serving. And so to your point, Beth, we empower women across the world to not only recycle a sustainable product, but also get into the hands of as many children locally as they can with culturally relevant education, so that we can teach children how to be healthy, not today, but well into the future.
Yeah, that's very smart. That's very smart. I want to ask you both, because you've done so much work during COVID, how do you tap into those specific moments in time while still keeping this authentic approach, right? How do you respond in times of crisis that don't just seem like you're doing something to be visible as a brand, but that it's really meaningful for what you do? Joe, why don't you go ahead and start there?
Yeah, and I think Clove at inception, as I mentioned before, we really wanted it to be a storytelling-based brand where we were shining a light on the realities of being a healthcare professional. So we really kind of kicked that into next gear. And I say kind of jokingly, especially when we did the Jefferson donation, I didn't realize, I always joke that I didn't realize my phone had a camera that could point towards me. I don't feel comfortable doing that on social, but we ended up filming like everything we did and kind of explaining, what we were doing and why, and filming the reaction. And like the amazing thing that came out of that was we got a message from a nurse based in Brooklyn saying, thank you so much for donating to Jefferson. I just found out my uncle was placed on a ventilator today, and it means the world to me to know that you're going out of your way to support the people who are saving my uncle's life. And so that's just an example of, we went to Jefferson here in Philly. We made a donation that felt like it was what we have to do. But then we shared that story in a way that then gave strength to a nurse in Brooklyn who had an uncle who was, dangerously ill. And then she had to put her scrubs on and go and wade into the same reality. So I think, finding ways to organically capture what you're doing and the real work that you're doing is incredibly important. And I guess it starts with doing the real work and then thinking about how you can authentically share that with the world.
Well, and having a history of providing that kind of resource, right? Not just coming in to a situation where, again, like Samir's point, you're not familiar and sort of wrenching yourself in there to provide something that doesn't fit with, your mission.
Yeah, and I think the fascinating thing for us, though, and this again echoes Samir's point of flexibility, which I think is just so important. Prior to COVID, we had a thesis early on that sharing photos of nurses and doctors in action would be the core of our content strategy. And we very quickly learned at launch that people just wanted to learn about the shoe, learn about the properties of the shoe, the research that went into it, the materials that we use. And then we saw this massive sea change when COVID happened, where people wanted to see other healthcare professionals and took strength from seeing other healthcare professionals being strong. And so everything that we started talking about and posting completely changed just based on the feedback loop that we were getting. So, it's, you have to have that awareness and be listening and building the feedback loops with your customer base and audience to be able to realize what the right move is there.
Yeah. And on the concept of listening, Samir, how do you make sure that you guys are active listeners all the time with the community that you serve?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are entirely comprised of the community that we serve. And that's an important fundamental principle in our industry, in the nonprofit industry. There has been a lot of distrust that has emerged over time. And at the heart of it, in my opinion, is the fact that it wasn't led by local leaders. And it was addressing a problem, as Joe mentioned, that had been fabricated or materialized out of nowhere. That is all to say that the mission was oriented more so towards donors and supporters rather than the people they were actually trying to help. So keeping our ear to the ground is something that we regularly do. And if I may, I just want to make an additional point, and it might sound controversial. EcoSoap Bank should not exist. What we are doing in the nonprofit sector is we are addressing a gap, an enormous gap in the public and private sector. And so if this moment indicates anything to us, it shines a very bright spotlight on the vulnerabilities of our society. And I think this moment and how to tap into it is to finally learn our lesson that we must integrate environmental and social sustainability into the fabric of our businesses, into the fabric of our mechanics, in order to ensure that this sort of reality is not a permanent fixture in our future, while the nonprofit sector isn't always going to be there to fill in the gaps.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And businesses are always addressing some kind of gap, but it's always a struggle to see it with something as basic as access to sanitation, right? How does your brand impact your community in a bigger way than just the product you're selling? I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but Joe, I'd love to hear your opinion on, results that you've seen that maybe you didn't even think you would expect when you started.
Yeah, I think probably the most overwhelming feedback that we've gotten is people writing us and just to thank us for existing and thinking about them. The number of times I've went to someone's website and gone to the footer and and found like contact us and just sent a company thanks for existing is probably zero, right? It's definitely zero for me. Like I've never thought to do that, which I think is a testament to how neglected healthcare professionals felt. And I think if we see everything we've seen from a PPE standpoint and the lack thereof, or you know, there's a nurse in our community that worked 41 days straight. You know, just thinking about having someone reach out to you and say that is pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's I guess we kind of look for those individual wins as a new company and are really inspired by every message that we get, and we hope to never ever lose that lose that piece of the business.
And I'm sure you didn't start the business necessarily thinking of advocacy, but usually when you're giving visibility or spotlighting, you know, a community of people who have a need that isn't being addressed, that makes you an advocate for that space. So in a way, you guys are advocates of healthcare workers, which is, you know, amazing.
Yeah, and like honestly, we had been thinking before from a policy standpoint, is there anything that we can throw our weight behind? But at that point we had zero weight, right? We hadn't launched, and so the ultimate goal for Clove is very much to get to the point where we can help lead discussion around those sorts of things, right? There's protections that specifically nurses and medical assistants should be afforded that, you know, I think we've seen many examples of that they don't exist right now. So that's something that we, you know, me personally, and I know the whole team is aspiring to. We just have to get a little bit more weight behind us to pull it off. But honestly, I think we're, like with the Clove Collective that we put together, I mean, these folks have a massive reach, and many of them are doing incredible advocacy already. And so we're hoping to, in our way, amplify the work they're doing. We have been, frankly, doing that since they joined the collective.
That's amazing. Samir, I want to ask you the same question, because I know obviously the sanitation part of the nonprofit is incredible, but I think it's also very interesting that you employ populations of women. And so I want to talk to you about the impact that creates and how you've seen that and experienced that.
Of course. There was one statistic I learned very early on that colors a lot of the decisions we make every single day. And it's as simple as women in the developing world typically reinvest 90% of their incomes back into their family units, as opposed to men at 40%. And so we very quickly realized that if we wanted to adopt and support entire family structures to help them afford better nutrition, to help children resume schooling for themselves and to finally graduate, we needed to invest in women's employment. And so I'd love to share just a quick story of not just how we are helping family units, but how we help women change their narrative, change their story. So very quickly, there's our very first employee in Cambodia. Her name was Tirang. And I remember when we interviewed her, she was so painfully shy, she would not even look us in the eye during that interview. Now, I'm very happy to say that today, 5 years later, she's still with us, and she coordinates our supply chain from over 250 hotels, dealing with five-star managers at these hotels, telling them what to do. But also, most importantly, she has created a platform where she can monitor, manage, and empower 15 other women in her community to recycle soap. And so, if I may, what we have helped do is give people around the world the platform to change not only their own story, change it away from a narrative of just survival to one of being a champion for their community and actually changing the course of public health in the community they live in.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to just quickly, we have a good question here in the comment section. How do you ensure that your business focus to meet people's needs is not compromised by the price of your product? Joe, I think that's a great question for you, because when we're talking about accessibility, price point is one of those things that we have to be thinking about. So I'd love to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, price was an important point for us in an analysis we did early on, and the way that we thought about it was, let's look at the existing shoes and that maybe people don't like as much. I don't want to throw stones, but there's kind of a clogs that are priced more than what our shoe is, and with a whole host of issues arising from discomfort to pain to injury. Many of them, we kept getting reports, and my wife included, of rolling ankles when you're trying to run to a code and turn a corner. And so we wanted to be more affordable than that, but we also wanted to be a sustainable business. Our product, we kind of, and I think it's likely the passion that I have because of the person I love most in this world is our core customer. Like we didn't cut any corners in the product. And so it's very expensive to make, and we didn't cut any corners from our manufacturing partners. We picked people who treat their workers with respect and pay them fairly. So to operate that way, frankly, it is expensive. So we wanted to pick a price that was make a better product at a price below the incumbent, but do so in a way that you can continue to operate as a business. And so, luckily it's been working to date, and we're happy with the decisions that we made there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit about why brands. We've talked a lot today about how it's an environment where a lot of people are shifting their business focus, right? We're going through a lot of change right now. There are a lot of people who have a renewed sense of urgency about pursuing new professions, new business ideas. A lot of people see this as an opportunity to start new businesses. So why should, as people are thinking about, starting these new businesses, starting brands, creating new products, why should people be thinking about concepts like social impact and accessibility for the future? Samir, let me let you take that first.
There are far many more illustrious people who can speak to the importance, or rather the danger of shareholder primacy, or the danger of short-term profit seeking, and I'll leave that to them. I can speak from my perspective, in that every single aspect of our organization is meticulous and obsessed with impact. And let me tell you the story of just one of our products. This is a bar of recycled soap. It's just an ordinary bar of soap. However, it holds an extraordinary story. Its components has been sourced from waste that ordinarily would have just been languishing in landfills. And then it's transitioned to over 150 women with no other source of reliable income to transform it back into a usable product, which it's then distributed to children in need who otherwise would never have access to this bar of soap before. And so every single aspect, every single point and chapter of this story, we looked at and said, how can we maximize benefit, not just for a short-term humanitarian benefit, but for a longer-term environmental world for today? I think if people go into their new business idea or business model with those core components, I think they will do well, because as customers, we are craving social change and we crave environmental action, not on an episodic basis, but as part of your fundamental business model.
Yeah. Joe, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Samir brings up a great point on for companies that do want to seek investors. How do you think about that? I mean, we had, it cost money for us to start, right? There was a great deal of investment that we had to make, and I couldn't fund it myself. But I took the process of finding investors very seriously so that our vision and goals for the business were aligned. There's some investors that would look at my business and say, you should try to cut the cost to make your product in half. Well, I understand the end use of this product and why it's so important that it's an incredibly high quality product, right? And I found investors who shared that same vision. So I think there's an opportunity for investors that, yes, they can help capitalize the business, but they can also share a vision with you, and align on goals be greater than making a buck. I've been there very lucky in finding a group that believes in that with me, and I encourage anyone that's starting a business, spend as much time as humanly possible with these folks to really understand what incentivizes them and really understand them as human beings, before just taking the most attractive looking offer.
Yeah. Samir, this is kind of a funny question, but
Sure.
I know that when you're in a nonprofit, you talk a lot about the impact that you do as a nonprofit. And in a way, it's how you market yourself, right? But how do you talk about it without making it feel like it's just a tactic?
Yes, and this has been a chronic issue in the sector as well. And so, listen, the global discourse and increased awareness surrounding hand hygiene has just skyrocketed. And many people have approached us and said, this is your moment. This is a marketing goldmine for your organization. And in my head, I say and think silently, we've been fighting infectious diseases for 6 years now, okay? Diarrhea kills more children than AIDS, malaria, and measles combined. However, we must look to the market and where it is now. And the market is saying, rather the audience is now sensitized to the fact that soap can be life-saving. And so at every opportunity, including forums like this, we must stress that hand hygiene is the only preventative option in addition to physical distancing for much of the developing world, and we hope to scale up the impact. And so I have a request for the audience today. If you know organizations working in the developing world, please have them go to our website and see which countries we're currently working in so that we can supply them with the soap that they need to keep their beneficiaries and their communities safe from COVID-19.
Amazing. I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about creativity. And we're talking about creativity very high level. And what I mean by that is not necessarily creative work, but how you stay creative, how you think of new ways to help your community, and how you think of how to creatively solve problems, right? So I want to talk first about how the environment for creativity has changed during COVID-19, or if it has. And Joe, I'd like to start with you there.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to our experience in the amount of time that we spent thinking of how do we make the most impact that we possibly can. And there is so much creativity at the company in finding a whole host of ways, right? Like we've just literally sent donations to hospitals all over the country. We had a fundraiser. I mean, you can see my bike here, my cycling team, and that I raced for in New York City, held a fundraiser, and we supplied boxes and boxes of shoes to Mount Sinai based on that, plus a big donation that we raised funds for. So we found all these creative ways to rally energy and focus to doing something that we believed in. Now, do I think we did everything right? No, we definitely have made missteps and missed opportunities. But I think, the best ideas in our company come when all of us get on the phone and everyone has an equal voice, and we're spitballing a whole host of things. And I could talk more about like the process that we use, but I'd love Samir to dive into this point.
There's a platitude that restriction breeds creativity. And so I don't want to just give lip service to that. I truly believe it. I can give you an example. Around January 1st, we had 154 women, economically disadvantaged. Some are single mothers, others are HIV positive. And we kept them on payroll, of course, but they had zero hotel soap to recycle because hotels were shuttered at the time. And so we had a significant and serious problem on our hands. What were our employees going to do? And so we were forced to think creatively about how to respond to this issue. And so we thought to ourselves, maybe instead of not just looking at the hotel industry as part of our supply chain or waste streams, maybe we'll have conversations with soap factories who incidentally were just completely ramping up production of bar soap, a heavily demanded product. And what we found completely transformed our organization in the last 4 months. As I said earlier, we mobilized over 100 metric tons of soap product in the last 4 months alone. And our women every single day are producing life-saving soap that will end up in the community along with hygiene education. So I truly am a believer in the fact that given limited options, we can still, of course, find a way through it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Joe, I mean, you made reference to talking about sort of your process before. I'd love to hear a little bit about that because I think it will illustrate how you promote a culture of creativity within your company.
Yeah, and sorry, can you hear me okay? I'm getting a little, okay, I'm coming through,
Yeah,
okay, great.
Yeah.
So I studied at Wharton and.
Oh, now you cut out. Still.
Left us with bated breath.
I know, we're like just on the edge of our seats.
What about Wharton?
No, if you want to try and drop and join back, we can do it that way. And in the meantime, Samir, I want to talk to you a little bit because one of the things that I really love and how we met is because you worked with Fiverr to do some creative redesign of your different branding materials, like your package design and all that. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that process, because in my opinion, I think you were very open-minded to work with us, which is a sign of a very creative thinker. So I am assuming that a lot of the people who work for you are the same open-minded kind of people. So I'd love to hear sort of your experience with that and, you know, what made you open to that opportunity and how it worked out.
Hopefully the majority of the Fiverr community is here today and made of this far in the session. This is a result of Fiverr's Do for Good program. This bar of soap, including the ingredients, the branding, and the packaging as well. You could go to our site to see more. But Beth, thank you for the accolade. I'm not sure if I deserve it, but I will tell you one thing that is important for organizations. Please, we must remain relentlessly self-aware. And so we immediately recognized as an organization that artistic creativity, working with graphic designers, for example, or product photographers was not in our wheelhouse. And therefore we needed to respond to proficiency as it was provided to us. So thank you for that opportunity again. In terms of cultivating a culture of culture of creativity, I think the most important thing is to not have a stranglehold on the mission and vision of this organization, that organizations and companies are living, breathing things. It's not a castle that you build and protect, building a moat around it. And if you will, it's a river that's constantly flowing through the topography, taking you to different places. It ebbs and flows naturally. And I think if that is who we are as an organization in 5 years, I think we will have done it correctly.
Yeah, that's great. Joe, you want to try your audio?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes,
okay.
We can.
Okay.
We get to hear the rest of the story.
Yeah, well, and it's brief, but I think it's actually very important. So Adam Grant espoused this, professor at Wharton espoused this method of giving equal voice in decision making, and I applied that immediately to what was really kind of the most fundamental decision early on, which is what's our brand going to look like and talk like and be like, and how do we show up in the world? And when we got these proposals from our creative partners, every person on the team, I asked them to take it, absorb it on their own, and write down their own complete list of viewpoints. so that when we all then eventually came together as a team, everyone spoke equally. The loudest, most aggressive voice didn't win out, and everyone had fully formed thoughts and positions. And we've used that in every big decision we've made since. And it's people joke about MBAs, not being worth it, but like literally that learning alone has been fundamental for at least giving everyone equal voice and increasing it's definitely the creativity at Clove.
So Joe, would you say that creativity then is intrinsically linked to diversity? And I don't mean just diversity in experience, diversity in thought, and diversity in background, and all those different things.
It's fundamental, and we've been very thoughtful about the diversity of our team. For a while, I was the only guy. There's another male that joined. Where 50% minority from an employee headcount standpoint, and it's very important to just have a unique set of voices. And all the research shows that you end up getting a better result as a company and as a team. The greater diversity you have.
Yeah, and I want to ask you guys too, knowing that there's a lot of entrepreneurs and amazing minds in the audience who are thinking about, like I said before, starting businesses, getting involved with different brands, creating new products. What advice do you have for them to think about these concepts like authenticity and impact, and really re-examine what they're putting out in the world? Samir, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I want to build on what Joe said to research thoroughly. Number one, a project or an idea that you may come up with probably already exists. You may have a different permutation of such an idea, but it needs to be fully fleshed out and researched. I have a saying that I have been using for a long time now, which has been, ideas are easy, implementation is hard. And I have seen that firsthand. And I'll tell you something. If I had known what it would take 5-6 years ago to launch and lead EcoSoap Bank to where it is today, I'm not so sure I would have started it. But then when I realized the fundamental sustained impact that we have that has shifted over time, hard lessons that we have learned, I rethink my statement, and I know that it was well worth all the pain and trials and tribulation. And I'm sure Joe would attest to that as well.
Yeah, and I love that point, Samir, in the early days of having an idea. And I can remember, I thought I was cheating for a while. I had my wife who was the direct use case, right? And I had seen her friends talk about how much they hated the footwear that they had, right? But I still was crazy about researching it, and did so much in-person surveying and online surveying, and like I mentioned before, doing the trial, and like, frankly, those are very scary things, because I didn't want to get a negative answer. Like, I didn't want people to say, I had so much passion about this business that I didn't want people to say, oh, like, why this isn't worth it. Like, and a lot of entrepreneurs will just plow through even if they're getting negative indications. So luckily we didn't get many indications, but we did get negative indications that we learned from all of the testing that we did and prototypes. And that's how you iterate and learn about your customer and learn about your product. So it's a bit scary to put yourself out there early days after you have the most brilliant idea. But Samir is absolutely right. It's all about implementation. And you should take advantage of all the feedback that's at your fingertips with everything we have in front of us today.
Yeah, that's great information on surveying. Well, I want to thank you both so much. It's been absolutely lovely to chat with the two of you. And I know that we'll chat again soon, but I know that all of our attendees will be looking into both Clove and EcoSoap Bank. So I was really excited to have you guys today and to hear your missions.
Thank you, Beth. Yeah,
thank you so much, Beth. And Samir, incredibly inspiring individual and nonprofits. So thanks for sharing your story.
Oh, my pleasure. Happy to follow your journey too, Joe.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.